For a long time, I thought having more stuff meant a better life. But after spending money on all kinds of things, I realized most of it didn't make a real difference. A closet full of clothes, but I always reach for the same few outfits. Expensive skincare products that didn't work any better than the simple ones. And high-end gadgets that, at the end of the day, did the same job as the cheaper versions. It made me step back and ask, is all this really worth it? We're constantly told that success means having more money, more luxury, more things. But real wealth isn't about what's in your shopping cart. It's about health, peace of mind, strong relationships, time, and experiences that actually make life richer. So today, I want to share 8 minimalist money habits that have completely changed the way I think about spending, saving, and what truly matters. Building on that thought, there's always been this debate about how money affects happiness. Some studies suggest that earning more does make you happier, but only up to a certain point, let's say around $60,000 to $100,000 a year. But honestly, I think that number depends on so many factors, like where you live and what kind of life you want. For a long time, I thought making more money was the key to a better life. So I worked overtime, picked up extra gigs, and packed my schedule as much as possible. But at some point, I realized I was sacrificing sleep, missing out on time with friends, and constantly feeling burned out. Sure, I was making more, but I wasn't actually enjoying my life any more than before. Money is a tool. It gives us security and options. But beyond a certain point, more of it doesn't necessarily mean more happiness. What really matters is knowing how much you need to live comfortably and enjoy your life. Once I figured that out, my whole perspective changed. Instead of chasing a bigger paycheck just for the sake of it, I started focusing on how to use my time and energy in ways that actually made me feel fulfilled. Because at the end of the day, you can always earn more money, but time? Once it's gone, you don't get it back. Now, let's be honest. Most of us have spent money on things we didn't really need. Not because we wanted them, but because it felt like the normal thing to do. Maybe it was upgrading your phone when the old one worked just fine, buying name-brand clothes just because everyone else had them, or getting a new car when your current one was still running perfectly. For a long time, I thought that as I earned more, my lifestyle had to grow with it. I assumed that success meant constantly upgrading, bigger home, fancier clothes, more expensive vacations. But then I had a realization. I wasn't making these choices for me. I was spending money to keep up with an invisible standard. The worst part? The more I spent, the more normal it felt. At first, it was just small upgrades. Then those upgrades became expectations. And before I knew it, I was spending more just to maintain a lifestyle that I didn't even need in the first place. That's when I decided to change the way I approach spending. Now, I ask myself a simple question before making any major purchase. If no one else could see this, would I still want it? It's a powerful way to filter out unnecessary expenses. Because at the end of the day, real happiness doesn't come from impressing others. It comes from spending intentionally on things that actually add value to your life. Not society's definition of success. Not what your friends are buying. Just what genuinely makes your life better. That being said, it's natural to want a better life as we grow. The way we spend in our 30s probably won't look the same as it did in our early 20s. Maybe back then, budget travel meant cramming into tiny hostel rooms or taking the cheapest flights with multiple layovers. But as we get older, comfort starts to matter more. And that's okay. The problem isn't upgrading your life. It's when those upgrades start feeling like needs instead of wants. Suddenly, things we once saw as luxuries become normal, and before we know it, we're spending more just to maintain a lifestyle we didn't even need in the first place. And the more we make, the easier it is to justify spending extra without thinking twice. That's why I try to keep my core expenses stable, no matter how much my income grows. Instead of mindlessly upgrading everything, I focus on spending where it actually makes a difference. That way, when I do want to splurge on something, like a nice dinner, a short getaway, or just outsourcing a task when life gets too hectic, it's a choice, not a habit that drains my savings. So if you haven't done it in a while, take a step back and look at where your money is going. Are you spending on things that truly improve your life? Or just keeping up with habits that don't add much value? The goal isn't to deprive yourself, it's to be intentional, so you can build a life that's both fulfilling and financially secure. Growing your savings and investments is important, but let's be real. What's the point of having money if your day-to-day life feels miserable? A lot of people think investing only means putting money into stocks or retirement funds, but it's just as important to invest in yourself. And no, I don't mean blowing cash on overpriced self-care products just because they promise to spark joy. I mean spending in ways that actually improve your life, like upgrading your workspace so you don't destroy your back, signing up for an activity that gets you out of the house, or even just treating yourself to a good meal on a tough day. At the end of the day, having money isn't enough. If you're always stressed, exhausted, or burnt out, what's the point? Yes, there are plenty of ways to take care of yourself for free, getting enough sleep, exercising, eating better, but sometimes spending strategically can make a big difference. Earlier, I said that most of the things we buy don't really change our lives, and that's still true. But when it comes to your health, your peace of mind, and the way you feel every day, that's the kind of investment that actually pays off. Now, we're always told to save money, build an emergency fund, invest for the future, be responsible with our spending. And while all of this is true, there's another side to the story that no one talks about. Saving too much can actually be a problem. A few years ago, I became obsessed with saving. I tracked every penny, cut out anything that wasn't absolutely necessary, and avoided spending money even when it would have made my life easier. My savings account looked great, but my quality of life? Not so much. I started realizing that I was hoarding money out of fear. I was so focused on security that I wasn't allowing myself to actually enjoy the money I had worked so hard to earn. And that's when I had an important realization. Money is a tool, not a goal. Yes, saving is important. But the purpose of money isn't just to sit in a bank account. It's to help you build a life that's actually worth living. Now, instead of obsessing over every dollar, I focus on balance. I still save, but I also allow myself to spend on things that genuinely improve my life, whether that's travel, hobbies, or experiences that create real memories. Because at the end of the day, being financially responsible isn't about depriving yourself. It's about using your money in a way that supports your happiness, your goals, and your version of success. So if you've been saving aggressively, but still feel like you're not living, ask yourself, what am I really saving for? Because while preparing for the future is important, so is making sure you enjoy the present. I was watching some interviews with older folks the other day, and when asked about their biggest life lesson, most of them said the same thing. Don't waste your time comparing yourself to others. We hear this advice all the time, but when it comes from people who have lived through so much, it carries a different weight. For years, I fell into the comparison trap without even realizing it. If someone was working overtime to build their career, I felt like I needed to do the same. If they had a dream house, I started thinking maybe I should aim for that too. But at some point, I had to stop and ask myself, is this even what I want? It's so easy to measure our lives against others, especially when we're constantly reminded of what success is supposed to look like. But the reality is, there's no one-size-fits-all path. What makes someone else happy might not mean anything to you. When I look back on my life, I want to feel at peace knowing that I made choices that truly meant something to me, that I spent my time and energy on things that brought me real joy and fulfillment, not just chasing what looked impressive to others or ticking off someone else's checklist. Because real happiness isn't about keeping up. It's about living in a way that actually fulfills you. Along the same lines, we've all heard it before. You deserve it. It's the tagline of every marketing campaign, the justification for impulse buys, and the reason why so many of us spend money mindlessly. Had a stressful week? Go on a shopping spree. Feeling unmotivated? Buy yourself something nice. Social media has turned self-care into an aesthetic. Face masks, fancy candles, and $8 lattes. And while there's nothing wrong with treating yourself, there's a fine line between self-care and financial self-sabotage. I used to fall into this trap all the time. I convinced myself that I was investing in my happiness every time I bought a new outfit or splurged on an expensive dinner. But the truth? Those quick dopamine hits never lasted. The excitement of buying something new wore off in days, sometimes even hours, and I was back to feeling the same way I did before, but with less money in my bank account. So I started to rethink what treating myself really meant. Instead of impulse shopping, I invest in things that bring lasting value to my life, whether that's upgrading my workspace to be more productive, paying for experiences instead of things, or prioritizing my health in a way that actually makes me feel good long-term. Real self-care isn't about spending money. It's about taking care of yourself in ways that actually matter. Next time you feel the urge to splurge under the excuse of, "I deserve it," ask yourself, is this really going to improve my life? Or is it just a temporary escape? Because there's a difference between treating yourself and tricking yourself into thinking that spending money will solve a problem that it won't. Lastly, we live in a time where entertainment feels cheaper than ever. Streaming services, social media, YouTube, there's always something to watch, and most of it is either free or extremely low cost. On the surface, it seems like a win. But what we don't realize is that we are paying for it, just not with money. A couple of years ago, I started tracking how I spent my free time. I was convinced that I was using my time wisely until I actually looked at the numbers. Hours lost scrolling through TikTok. Evenings spent binge-watching shows I didn't even care about. Mindless entertainment that, while fun in the moment, didn't actually add much to my life. The reality is, just because something is free doesn't mean it has no cost. We're paying with our attention, our energy, and most importantly, our time. And unlike money, time is something we can never get back. So now, I treat my time the way I treat my finances. I budget it. I choose activities that actually add value, whether it's reading, learning something new, or just spending time outdoors. Because when you stop spending your time on autopilot, you start realizing just how valuable it really is. Next time you catch yourself endlessly scrolling, ask yourself, is this really how I want to spend my most valuable resource? Because while money can be earned back, time never can. All right, so here's the real takeaway. Money isn't the goal. It's just a tool that should be working for you, not stressing you out. The way we spend, save, and invest shapes the kind of life we build. And when we start being intentional about it, everything changes. So, next time you're about to spend on something, take a second to ask yourself, is this actually making my life better? Or am I just on autopilot? Because small, mindful choices add up in a big way. If this video gave you something to think about, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What's one money habit that changed your life? Let's swap ideas. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.